If I'm going to talk to you about the use of self, I ought to demonstrate and put my money where my mouth is and show you what I mean when I use the term use of self. In terms of my background, I've been here at Foggin 10 years. In terms of my professional background, I'm still a registered social worker. I worked for many years in the world of mental health. So I have links into the world of therapy and psychological theories. But before I was a mental health social worker, I was a musician and a stand-up comic. So I also have links into the world of performance. And the concept of use of self has threads from both my previous worlds. It's well known in the world of therapy, and I'm always very honoured to sit next to learning therapists. You can pick me up on my use of terminology later. And in the world of therapy, the idea of use of self was very much part of the psychodynamic tradition and links into ideas that as a therapist, this is your toolkit. And I say this very strongly to my social work students because in the Faculty of Health and Wellbeing, we've got lots of rubber bodies and high-tech stuff that good colleagues in this room from nursing, radiotherapy, etc. use high-tech equipment. Social workers, this is it. This is our toolkit. So I've always had an interest in teaching my students about use of self. And in the world of therapy, it comes from this idea of counter-transference. So one of the areas of material that a therapist draws on is their own feelings about the client they are seeking to help. Because that can give important clues into aspects of that person's life, the feelings that they evoke in other people. I think it's relevant in the world of education and what we do for a living here at Hallam for a couple of reasons. How many of you in your teaching experience have had these experiences? You're discussing a cohort of students in your course team and a colleague says to you, I have real problems with them. They turn up late, they talk through my lectures. They're very disrespectful to me. I can't seem to handle that. I've certainly had these discussions. Why is it that the same group of students can behave so differently with one lecturer than another? Some of the answers to that question lie in the use of self. Not all of them, but some. Another common conundrum, and I've certainly experienced this, I've been here long enough now to have certain tried and tested sessions that I use. You know, there are certain things that I teach year on year, and other than tweaking and updating the content, it's a tried and tested session. I try it out with a new group of students, and it goes absolutely pear-shaped. I might as well have brought in my banjo and sung some American folk tunes to them for the amount of social work knowledge they're getting. Again, what's the difference? Well, with a different group of students, there's a different dynamic between me and them. And maybe what I failed to do, because I was being too confident that my tried and tested session was going to work, and what I failed to attend to is the dynamics in the room, here and now. So what does this mean for us? It means, I think, some things that are quite challenging and a little bit scary. I was very, very inspired by our keynote speaker this morning, partly because of her own manner of delivery. She, for me, is, you know, she's my best visual aid. There's someone who's very, very good at using herself in that big traditional lecture space. And I'm very, very inspired to hear about scale-up, because I think what the scale-up methodology allows one to do is put one's own stamp on a learning situation in quite a different kind of way. So what does this mean for you? Well, the only way you can learn about your use of self in your role is by asking for feedback. There is no other magic wand. How do you know what your students make of you? Where do we get that information from? Come on, help me out. Talk back to me. Say again? We can ask them. It's crazy, but it can work. Students sometimes fall over themselves to tell you what they think. One of the things that's very interesting is that Hallam as an institution has now also decided to make peer-supported review a kind of compulsory bit of staff development. I absolutely and utterly applaud that move, because I've worked here for years before anyone came in and saw what I did in the classroom. The assumption was made that I was doing okay because students hadn't beaten a line to the subject leader's door to say, "This new woman, she's a bit mad, what are you doing?" I've learned from feedback down the years. I told you I used to be a stand-up comedian. In my first year here, some of the mature students in the large cohorts of about 90 students that we teach on the Integrated Social Work Programme came to me and said, "You're going to have to tone down the humour because some students, it's kind of going over their head and they don't know when you're joking." And that concerned me, and I had to go in and be very, very self-aware and recognise when I'd said things and there were blank faces in the room. So, what it requires of us in class is thinking on our feet. Not just sticking with plan A because plan A has always worked before. And it takes a kind of bravery. I've certainly had sessions that have gone badly wrong, and I've had to go back into those students that can't run away. I have to go and teach them again the following week. It's not my time to go. And I've had to have the bravery to say to them, "That really didn't work last week. I'm not quite sure what happened there. Help me out."
1 minute left. Okay.
So if you want to think about how you use yourself in teaching, first of all, go to the Library Gateway, look up the expression use of self. You will find literature about it that will stimulate your thinking. Secondly, make good use of feedback from students. Make good use of the peer-supported review mechanisms that are now going to be in place. Be brave. Ask students if you can do this and put a video camera in the room and then watch yourself back. That's the best thing that anyone ever did to me when I was on what used to be called the mod course, the MA Learning and Teaching, when I did the certificate session. Being videoed and watching it back. Scary, I know, my God, at my age, in my 50s, I've turned into my mother, but then I don't mean you turned into my mother. But in terms of seeing myself in action and understanding what I did that worked and what I did that wasn't working, and then having the bravery to tackle those things.